Okay, so this is our final example for law of cosines, and I put it on a second video just so we didn't bump up against the time limit on these video posts. I think we'll be fine either way, under 15 minutes, but I didn't want to run into time issues. So this final example has two sides and an included angle, which is different than the previous one that had three sides. And I'm going to ask that you just draw this in on a sheet of paper or on the back of the notes template you're using, because this would be question number 9. If yesterday we did, or if the previous section we did question 8, where it had the three sides. So on this one, and I've written out the law of cosines that we used in the previous problem as well as this problem. What you're going to do is go after side A first. So you're going to say a squared is equal to, and it's going to be 12 squared. Those are our two sides, and 16 squared. So 12 squared plus 16 squared minus 2 times 12 times 16 times the cosine of 32. And that's a big, long expression, and I don't want to do anything with it for the moment. I'm going to square root both sides of this equation. So on the left, I get a all by itself, and on the right, I get this big expression under a square root. And I don't want you to simplify it first. I want you to take that entire thing and plug it into a calculator. So let's do that. So I'm going to pop over to the calculator. I'm going to go second squared to get my square root option. I'm going to do 12 squared plus 16 squared minus 2 times 12 times 16 times the cosine of 32. And I'm going to close that off, hit enter, and that gives me 8.6 as my decimal. So I'm going to pop back to our screen, and we're going to say A is 8.6. Okay, now what we have to do is go after the two angles, so angle B and angle C. So it doesn't really matter which one we choose. I'm going to go after angle B. So I'm going to go after angle B first. And to do that, I'm going to use law of sines. So just like the previous example, we're going to use law of cosines for the first piece, but then we're going to switch over to law of sines, which is a bit simpler and faster. So sine of B over 16 equals sine of 32 over 8.6. And then I'm going to multiply both sides by 16. So I'm going to have sine of 32 divided by 8.6 times 16. And that's going to give me a decimal expression. So let's go get that. So sine of 32 times 8.6. And you can either write in 8.6 or, and let's try this option. If I do times and I do second with that minus sign, it's going to grab the full decimal expression, 8.622617,414. And it just gives us a more accurate answer. So sine of 32, and actually is it divided by that answer? Sine of 32 divided by 8.6. So let's try that one again. So let's do sine of 32, and then we're going to divide that by our answer. So second answer. And now I'm going to multiply my final result by that 16. So sine of 32 divided by my 8.6 number times 16. I'm going to hit enter, and I've got 0.983. So that means sine of B equals 0.983. To get what angle B is, then I'm going to use that notion of an inverse. So we've seen that before. I go sine inverse of this decimal. And again, I'd encourage you in the calculator just to leave those numbers in there, because then we can go second sine inverse, second answer, and it's just going to grab that full decimal, not what you cut off, but that full decimal, and it actually is less you need to type. And you hit enter, and you're going to get 79.5. So our answer then for angle B is 79.5. And once we've got that, we already know 32. So to get angle C, we're going to say, well, take angle C, add 79.5, add 32, and those three things need to be 180. So again, let's kind of box this off. We use law of cosines first. So we'll put first. Then we used law of sines second. So that's second. And then third, after those two, our last thing we're going to do is we're just going to add to 180. So 32 plus 79.5. Well, let's see. If I add those two together, I'm going to get 100. Do a C plus. I get 111.5 when I add those together, and that equals 180. I'm then going to subtract 111.5 from both sides. and I'm going to take 180 minus 111.5. And when I do that, certainly you can use a calculator, but we can also do this in our heads. We're going to get 68.5 degrees for angle C. And then I've got my one piece, side A, two piece, angle B, three piece, angle C. And that's it. That's our last example for law of cosines.